Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Financial Independence through Small Multifamily Investing. My name is Lawrence Laddie, also known as Mr. International. I am the host of this meetup. Tamara Jones is a super host, Airbnb super host. If you know what that means, you better go check it out. That means she has done 5 stars, right? She has hosted more than, I think it's more than 100. I'm not sure, I don't remember everything, but I know one thing. I know Superhost is something that you have a level that's been attained by someone who takes care of their guests and does a fantastic job at it. And she's also a mother of 3 and also a veteran of the armed forces. So first of all, thank you for your service, Tamara. Thank you for taking the time out from what you're doing in the Dominican Republic. I'm sure you let them know what you're doing. And the floor is yours, Tamara.
Well, I appreciate the invite, Lawrence. And just like Aaron's meetup, it feels like a family already. I see some of the familiar faces that are some of my faves here, Kenneth, and I've seen you, Janelle, and a couple of other meetups and things like that. And so, of course, and Aaron, and I love Chantel. She knows I do love her to pieces, and the work that she quietly does behind the scenes to propagate little folks like us to the forefront with her work. So again, I appreciate being here, Lawrence.
Thanks for coming.
All right, I don't know if you, feel free to ask me any questions. Do you want my spill? I've been in the short-term rental business since 2015. So I've been around for a while. In short-term rental, started with just a room. And I like to think of myself as really the face of using short-term rentals as passive investment. So have matured from acquiring the units and just hosting them and operating them to now acquiring them for passive investment opportunities for investors. And that's kind of what you see us, doing now. We've expanded out into unique spaces. So we had a tiny house that rolled out about a week ago. We had our first tiny house, and that's why I was interested in even what Janelle was saying was it would be great to partner with somebody who's buying or investing into mobile homes, because those are being flipped over into tiny home villages, as a matter of fact. So it's just a great way to again create opportunities for investors out here. But yeah, I've been doing this for a while. Started off with a short-term rental property management company, which wasn't common back when I was doing this. And we grew when I got with the company. They had about 50 units, but we grew to about 160 before I left and branched off onto my own. And now I have close to 20, being a brand new operator that's kind of independent, but they're everywhere. I have some in Florida, some in Georgia, some in Alabama. We have them all over, and now some in Dominican Republic. So right now I have 5, and I just signed for 1 today.
So can you please tell us what got you started in the short-term rental space?
Yeah, I wasn't too different from anybody else in a place that I was interested in real estate always had an interest. Even when I was in a service, I had an interest, but of course, I thought it was going to be more of a traditional type of real estate that I did. But once I got out and I became a paralegal, I was like, hey, I need something to kind of supplement my income, because I actually was making a lot more. Believe it or not, a lot of people think you don't make, but I was making pretty good money because I was living over in Hawaii. So I was making pretty good money. So when I got out and became a paralegal, I was like, I want something to supplement my income. So I decided to put a room on the list of room that I had on Airbnb. And I keep saying, and you'll watch, if anybody else has watched me talk, I'll say that room blew me away because that room was paying my mortgage. That room by itself was paying my mortgage, and then then some. So I started to think, if a room is paying my mortgage, what does an entire space do? What kind of, profit could you see from an entire space? And that's when I started to really venture out with trying to do it on my own at first. I tried to go out and get my own place, but I didn't even know what that looked like. I was like, do you have to buy it? Do you have to, can you rent it? Or, what does the contract look like? So I backed up a little bit and started looking for mentorship, which I'll still say today is one of the most important things that you need to start with, is some type of mentorship that points you in the right direction. Somebody's already doing what you're doing and doing it successfully. And so I did end up again with someone who's a mentor and had a company that was doing this, but I ended up working for the company. I didn't just end up getting mentorship. I ended up working for the company. And at first I was doing their permits because I was already in the legal field. So I was doing all their permits, and that turned into, well, since you understand zoning and permits, you can source the properties. You'll know what properties to source. And so that turned into sourcing, and then so on and so on. I did everything, setups, everything that you could put your hands on in short-term rental. I did that for a couple of years.
Okay, so now you start this business, this one room, right? You started one room, and you had the light bulb went off when they paid your mortgage.
Yes.
So what was your next step after that? What did you do after that? What did you acquire after that? What did you do after that?
Yeah, I acquired a beach property. So I went straight for the gusto, and that's just how we all are, especially when you're in this, to be in real estate, you got to be somebody that kind of walks on a fringe a little bit. You just kind of go for what you want. And so I went straight for a beach property, and I went so hard for this beach property. I ended up getting a hotel room. This is Tybee Island. I ended up getting a hotel room for a 3-day weekend. I took a 3-day weekend out there, and I went literally from like up and down the streets looking for rent signs and things like that, calling different owners, setting up appointments. And I got one. I ended up with one on that Sunday, right before it was time for me to go. I didn't want to leave empty handed, but it so happened, one of the owners said, hey, I'll meet with you. I'm headed out to Canada, but let me meet with you. And I said, if I'm going to go there, and this is one of my last chances, I'm going to go there with guns blazing. And I had everything ready. I mean, I had a whole packet of referrals and my credit report printed out in case he wanted it and whatever. And I told him, hey, I want this unit, but I want to use it for an Airbnb. I'm already doing it at a small scale. And he just laughed. He laughed at me. He said, I did that for a while and I sucked at it. I was really terrible at it. And if you want to do this, if you think you could do better than me, which maybe you can, you go ahead. And it took off. So yeah, I still have that unit. And so that was close to around 2016 or so. Mm-hmm.
So you had you doing rental Airbnb arbitrage already.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't know that was arbitrage. So if anybody just like me and starting out and you say, what is arbitrage? And arbitrage is just to lease a property, taking control of a property by leasing it with the full intent to profit off of that property by listing it on those online travel agency sites such as Airbnb, Booking.com, Verbal, TripAdvisor, Furnish Finder, all of those sites, and being totally transparent to the owner that that's what you're doing.
So when you did that, so now let's stop right there for a second. Let's explain. So you get the arbitrage. So now you pay the owner his rent, right? And then you're renting his place out for the Airbnb. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're taking a monthly fair market value rate. So I would look at today, I would recommend that people look at what is the fair market value rental rate of a property. If you're looking for arbitrage, look at that. Then you lease it for that amount, not too much over, because you're not getting equity out of the property. You're strictly looking for that cash flow, and you want as much of that as possible. So you want to keep the amount that you're renting it for close to fair market value. And so you rent it for fair market value, but then you rent it out, sublease it or sublet it on short-term rental basis at a nightly rate. And that's how you make your above break-even point.
So there's one thing important I noticed. There's one thing I got out of that also. That you need to tell the landlord ahead of time what you're doing.
Yes, yeah. And you know what? I came across later as, just being in a business, coming across because I was a virtual assistant for a while with helping people with their units and things like that. And I saw so many people in hot water because they were obtaining their units without that being known. And that can get you a big time loss. It's not just about, that you have to cease and desist, what you're doing. It's about taking a financial loss just because of the way that you got into a contract. And so that's one of the things that I preach, is that make sure that anything you're doing in this business, short-term rentals, is totally transparent, and that your contracts are really locked in tight for your protection.
Okay, so now that's the arbitrage part of it, right? So now let's say, for instance, because Margaret was talking about she's looking to get this property together to rent out one for Airbnb, right? There's someone else that they're looking to do there's other people here doing short-term rentals. I can remember everybody, right? But I remember Margaret saying that. So now what should somebody do who's just getting out the gate, right? They're looking to start this Airbnb. What are the core steps that they need to do to get the Airbnb up and ready?
Well, first I'll tell you to make sure it's what you want, because even though a lot of people come into it because they see really what it is that you're profiting off, meaning that a short-term rental at this point makes about 3 to 4 times more than a long-term rental. So that catches a lot of people's eye. But what isn't told about that story is that you move more into the hospitality business. And that's very, it could be passive depending on how you set your systems up, but it could be very non-passive depending on how you set your systems up. And so you're thrust into more of a passive area if you're in real estate, of renting to long-term tenants, into a more active area of real estate if you go into short-term rentals without the right system. So first of all, make sure you are ready to be thrust into the hospitality arena. And if you're not, then make sure you make the right decisions as far as management and who you want to hand that part off to. So just know that it comes with that part of it. That's a big difference. And if you're dealing with regular real estate, traditional real estate. And so that's one of the things I'll tell you to be aware of before we get into what needs to be in place. Another thing you need to be aware of before you get into getting into it is you need to be aware that short-term rentals are not as stable as long-term real estate. They are very impacted by seasonality. They're very impacted by political changes. There are many things. You saw we were hit. If we're talking about real estate did great during COVID. If we're being honest, a lot of people took off in real estate during COVID. There was so many opportunities, but short-term rentals suffered. If you did not know how to handle that, that type of downfall in the economy, there was some opportunities. But if you were not in this for that reason, for those type of opportunities to pick those up, and you were just in it for cash flow, a lot of people suffered during the COVID time of things, because again, short-term rentals are very, very volatile type of real estate, and you have to realize that. So those are the things I would say be aware of. Now, you say, okay, I have a multi-unit and I want to take some of those and I want to turn those into short-term rentals. The first thing I'll tell you is to be sure that you look at your zone and the land use of that particular building and that particular, county. It really comes down to the county or municipality, because some of them, it just depends. Some of them don't allow you to mix. Some of them don't allow short-term rental, which in most cases is 30 days and below. And sometimes I see it 90 days and below. The majority of times it's 30 days and below. Check your zoning and check and see what you're allowed to do within that zone. And some of them don't have rules, like you can't mix those type of activity in the same multifamily, believe it or not. So check that out. And then you want to make sure that you, again, have the right mentorship, because what that comes down to is analysis. So what I like to do, and I would say anybody that should do this, is you want to look at what are you projected to make? Because believe it or not, again, everything doesn't work well as a short-term rental. You know, some places you go perform better as your traditional long-term rentals, you know, or your traditional real estate. So you want to be able to understand how to analyze that and those tools that are out there to analyze that before you jump into, again, making a decision to do that. And then the other thing about it is knowing that the step-in point as far as furnishing, you have to furnish the whole thing, right? You got to furnish it. You have to, you know, invest in some, like I said, automated tools and things like that. So you start looking at, that's something you normally wouldn't do, you know, if you had like a traditional unit and things like that. So again, mentorship, analysis of the property. Then you want to make sure that you understand the higher price point as far as the unit itself, not gaining it as far as the investment, but the unit itself, the higher price point and the legalities of what it is that you're wanting to do and that what does that county say you can do.
So now you just mentioned, thank you for that. You just mentioned also legalities, but you also mentioned automation, right? Now, where are you at right now?
I'm in the Dominican Republic and actually the Santo Domingo area.
Okay. And you have properties where?
Have them in Santo Domingo now, but Santo Domingo, I also have them in Jacksonville, Florida area. I have some in Alabama, a few in Alabama. Some, of course, I told you, Tybee Island, Atlanta, Georgia, New Orleans, and I think I got all the areas. Yeah.
Okay. So now, so obviously everything for you is automated. So now, because you're in San Domingo, doesn't stop you from doing what you got to do. So what tools have you used to automate the process in short-term rentals?
So there's technical systems, and then because I want to talk about it from a system standpoint that allows you to operate remotely. So if you're somebody here and you're looking at operating multiple units and they're not going to be all in the same place, and I'll tell you, ask me later, where I'll tell you that's not a good idea to do that. When I see people building an empire in a single place, it raises my eyebrows. And one reason came to pass when I told a friend to be careful about that. But you want to get certain systems in place. Some of them are automated based and some of them are just contractual based. So when I say systems, example, I'm here in Santo Domingo because the company that contracted my company wants those systems in place. They want to know how do they automate and how do they operate units that are not only here in Santo Domingo, but what about the ones they have in Punta Cana and Bavario and Meaches and things like that. And so we're looking at how do you contract your cleaners? What are they doing? You know, so the contracts are, I cannot afford for you to just be a residential cleaning. That doesn't work here. You're going to have to be a little bit more than that when you're working on short-term rentals. And then also the same thing with your handymans. I can't afford you to show up tomorrow because tomorrow their trip might be over. When there's a ticket in, I need you to show up today, and that's contractual. Now, if we talk about automated tools, some of the tools that I like start with your analysis. So when we talk about what do you want to keep in your toolbox to make sure you're making a good decision on turning a unit into a short-term rental, one of those tools is AirDNA. I know you've maybe heard of that, but AirDNA, they, believe it or not, the company that I have here that has all of these units, some of them they flipped to short-term rentals aren't doing well. They don't know about those tools. You know, they don't know about analysis. So AirDNA, I love that one. It tells me about demand and it tells me about what the occupancy rate is and what I should be bringing in yearly because it counts forecasts for the seasonality in it. And I also like to use a tool called Data Raboot. I've been using that before it was really popular. It was just a prototype. And what that shows me is it shows me a really clear look at your competition. And I like to look at your competition within a mile radius. So It doesn't do a lot of good if you're looking at competition and they could be, let's just say 5 miles out, because a lot can change with a radius of being 5 miles out. So I like to look at that as well. So these are the tools with analysis. Now let's just talk really quickly about the tools of operation. So some of the tools I like to use for operation is a channel manager. And that is what you do to set up your automated messages. That's how your cleaners get their cleaning jobs without you touching anything. So after we do setup, I like things to run on their own, including I don't want to be texting my, my cleaners, and I don't want my host texting my cleaners, telling them when the next cleaning. They can check that themselves when they're plugged into the channel manager. And also the channel manager deconflicts your calendars. And why that's important is because isn't it better to be listed on 4 platforms from day one than 1 platform? So in order for you to be listed on 4 platforms, you need something tracking those reservations coming in on those different platforms so nobody's overbooked, right? So these are the type of tools I like to use. And the last one I like to use is called the pricing optimizer. Because who knows, if you're not in the fishing, you don't know the world's greatest fishing tournament is coming into your city, and you get to, if you normally charge $80 a night, now you could charge $390 a night. Who knows that? But your pricing optimizer will help you with that. And those are the tools I like.
So you just said something just there that caught my attention. You said 4 platforms. So what 4 platforms are you talking about?
Yeah, so right off the bat, I like to list our units, right away on Airbnb, Verbal, Booking.com, and TripAdvisor. Right off from day one, it goes on those 4 platforms. And that's because we push the listing through the channel manager. You can go there and build out a listing on each platform and see how you do, or you can get to one centralized tool, build one master listing, and push that out to those different channels.
So can you repeat those again, please?
Yes. So Airbnb is the daddy. That's just what it is. It's the daddy of short-term rentals. And I laugh when people are new and they say, I'm not going to use Airbnb. Good luck with that, especially when you're new. Okay. Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, and TripAdvisor.
Tamara, when you use that one site to push to all 4, when you get reviews, does it also push to all 4, or does it push to each independent, like Airbnb or VRBO?
That's a good question, Tanisha. So the individual platforms still act as themselves, meaning that guests still interact with that platform. They have no sight of what other platforms you might be on unless they go looking for it. But if a guest puts in a review in their Airbnb guest, that review gets put on the Airbnb site. Now, if your question is, it's a great question, is if I, as the operator, or my team as the operating team, we send out reviews, does it go to the site that reservation came from? And the answer is yes, and it can do it automatically. So that's another thing we have set in place, which is reviews go automatically out. 5-star reviews go out automatically, and you'll see as you scale, you have to do that. You're going to say, when you first start, I want to just tell them they did a great job. But as you scale, you need those things to start being automated. And the only thing that we stop that with is a trigger. That means something happened during that, stay that they didn't deserve 5 stars, but we still play by the rules. So we have those built in our systems as well. So I hope that answered.
That answered perfectly. I have another question along those same lines. How hard is it to build up momentum in the beginning if you have no reviews?
I love that question. And matter of fact, I think Kenneth asked that question last time. I think he did. Last time was on Aaron's Meetup. It's not hard at all. And the reason why it's not hard at all is because it is fact, price. So if you're brand new and you don't have reviews and your listing is brand new, what you want to do is you want to run a promotion right away. Now, Airbnb is going to tell you, okay, when you first build it, go ahead and we're going to offer you to run this promotion. So it's going to be already have it there for you. But some of the other platforms doesn't. And you need that promotion because that's what's going to get people to book, even though you are not tried and true yet. And that's how you get those first couple of reviews. And a reason I'm glad you asked this question, Tanisha, because I just was having this conversation with one of the owners that is learning as we manage his property. He's just shadowing and learning. And he was telling me how he didn't want us to give concessions because it was some things in the new unit that were not available. Washer and dryer wasn't available because it wasn't ready. And some things that he promised in a listing that are supposed to be there. And we were offering really a one night reimbursement because those reviews count. If you get in the first 3 reviews, you get a bad one. It's just like getting a F in school. You need like 3 to just double that. You need about 6 A's to get out of that hole. And it is no different with short-term rental. I'm telling you, the first 3 to 5, you need 5 stars. Or what's going to happen if any of those are less than 5 stars, you're going to drop in that SEO ranking, and it's going to be hard to get out of that hole. So you tell me, TJ, why are you giving all these concessions? Because you need to stay out of the hole. You know, so.
That makes a perfect sense. I got one more for you, and then I'm not going to hog the floor. Was there any, as a veteran, was there anything that you could take advantage of as far as VA benefits is concerned with short-term rentals?
I'm gonna tell you, I learned this from Aaron's meetup when it was a military meetup, and I never knew it when I was in the service. But you can take advantage of your VA guarantee that allows you to buy a multi-unit, building, a multi-unit single family or a multi-family building. That's what I'm looking for. And you're allowed to run some of those as sublets or short-term rentals. It just depends on what way you're playing by the rules. I would say do that all day long. There's no down payment. One of the hardest things that people have with getting into this business when they're purchasing is that they start to, number one, have an issue with the amount of money you need to put down. So when you start talking investment, you're talking 20, 30% down. And then also, as they're trying to scale, you also have a problem with DTI. But in with the veterans guarantee, at least you're stepping into that multi-family property with nothing down. I mean, I would use that all day long now that I know, you know.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you for great questions, Tanisha. Thank you for great questions. So Tamara, so now what else do you talk about automation? You talked about the automation operations. But how do you automate? Do you automate the locks, the front doors? What else is automated to make it truly like more like a hands-off investment there?
I tell you, I love that question, Lawrence, because I tell you, I'm so hands-off. I'm all about doing the work up front and then letting things run on its own. Okay. So we have everything automated, even down to the locks. You know, the locks are automated. I love a company, and you can look them up, called August Lock, which is, it can be connected to your channel manager. If you don't have a channel manager, you say you got 1 unit, and you say, TJ, I got 1 unit. I don't have nothing but time all day to manage this, and I don't need that. That's fine. It connects directly to the channels itself. So that, I like that type of technology that does things like allow us to unlock doors over the air. I could be sitting right here, and this is no lie, just did it last night, right here in Santo Domingo, and unlock a door there in Jacksonville, Florida. You want to put technology and things to support you, you know, your passivity in this business. You want to put those things in place. So yeah, I'm telling you, the cleaners, making sure they're contracted right, handyman, making sure that's right, automated messages, automated locks, things like that. All start working like clockwork, and all you know is that people are checking in and out. Yeah, you want to do maybe 1 or 2 critical checks, and I talk about that when I get into hosting. But there's like one critical check I say that somebody live should step in. Outside of that, doors are opening and closing without us doing too much with those units.
Okay, so now let's get to hosting, right? Let's get to that. So what you are a super host, right? What does a super host mean?
Well, what a super host means is that really you've matured in this business. If I were to sum it up, you've matured in this business to understand that a guest can be safe with renting your place. There's a filter. So if you didn't know, there's a filter on Airbnb, and for verbal, it's called Premier Host. So there's a filter that a guest is allowed to click in order to only see the listings that are provided by Superhost. That is used a lot. That's one of those filters that's used a lot. And why they're doing that is because they don't want to go to somewhere that ruins their vacation. And with the Superhost, you're almost getting a guarantee that this host will go out of their way, or they went out their way to make sure that what is presented in the listing is what they receive. And also the quality of service is guaranteed when you see that Superhost status.
So now that's what makes a superhost. So how do you get the superhost status? What are the things that you personally do to get the superhost status? What are the things?
Superhost status, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's all about these elements. So people think it's just about reviews, and it's not necessarily just about the reviews. Another big part of it, so to get to Superhost, you want 10 5-star reviews, and a lot of times it has to be consecutive, 10 5-star reviews. And a lot of people think, oh, 4-star is not bad. It's bad. You don't ever want a 4-star. You want 5 stars, and you need to remind your guests you need 5 stars, okay? Because 4 stars isn't even good. So another big thing about what will get you into Superhost and kick you out of it quickly is cancellations. So anytime that you cancel, it doesn't matter what the reason is. Anytime that you cancel, guest reservations, remember you're putting them out of their plans. That makes people anxious. Think about how it would make you feel, And so a lot of the platforms take cancellations into a large consideration, for Superhost. And then finally, the element is, how often do you get booked? Do people actually want to stay? Is there something about your listing that's making people not want to stay there? Or your listings that's making people not click on accept, So there's a rating or a level that you have to maintain as far as how much you're booked, per quarter.
Thank you. So Cinto, you have a question? Go ahead.
First of all, Larry, thanks for hosting as always, and Tamara, thank you so much. This is wonderful. When you talk about cancellations, so in order to get kicked off the Superhost filter, is it if the host cancels, or is it if the guest cancels?
That's a great question. I'm gonna tell you, because that is so ambiguous when you look at the platforms themselves, but it comes down to when the host initiates the cancellation. So actually the guest canceling isn't an issue unless it starts to impact the amount of and there's a level that they look at of how much you're booked. So it goes into that area that I was talking about, is what's causing them to cancel. So, guest canceling sporadically happens, but when that cancellation rate is systemic and it's causing your unit to perform under units that are around yours, and so that gets brought up under your evaluation.
Oh, okay. So what I'm hearing is it could be on either side of the fence, but if there's a repeated occurrence, the algorithm picks that up and it docks you. Is that what it is?
That's absolutely right. And so normally I would say, oh, okay, no, it's just a host cancellation, but that's not necessarily all true. It depends on how much guests are canceling, which I've seen, because it indicates there's a problem with
There's a problem.
There's a
Right.
problem somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. That's super, super helpful.
So, it's funny you said that, cancellations. I can speak on that, right? Because I had to cancel. I have a Airbnb here in the city, right? I had to cancel because I'm not doing a one night thing, right? Because I just got it up and running again because because of the pandemic, things slowed down to a halt. Right, so now it's picking back up, and I didn't update my stuff on Airbnb, and I just had this one night. I had to keep on canceling. So they sent me a letter. They sent me on the email. We're gonna have if you don't stop, please stop canceling. If something to the effect that if you keep on canceling, we're gonna lower your status. So I had to get back on. What I do is I had to go into the Airbnb and stop the one night, make it 3 nights is the minimum for me. So now we're on. While I'm on that, about the night stay. What is your professional expertise, right? What is your thoughts? Because obviously you've been doing this for a while, right? You have knowledge, expertise in this. What is the minimum stay that you would suggest anybody have for Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com? What's the minimum you should have?
It depends on your unit and the market. So there's no, blanket answer. And I've heard that, especially places like Clubhouse and things like that. But it honestly depends on the market, and I'll give you examples.
Mhm.
So, example of, because people say, oh, it's not worth it, a one night stay is not worth it. Are you near a port that pushes out, what is those, Carnival, I can't think of those. Cruises. Are you near a cruise port? Because all day long, that's what's going to make your money is those one night stays, those folks that are showing up just to get out the next morning or that next day. That is how you're making your bread and butter. That's what it is. And then it depends on your unit itself. Do you have such a large unit that the turnover doesn't make sense for a one night stay? In some cases it is, it is that way, but that is not for everybody. And I'll tell you why it's not for everybody. The smaller units, again, like I told you that example, are you looking to be on Booking.com? If you're looking to be on Booking.com, which Booking.com brings you in a lot of foreign travelers, people from overseas, guess what? You're competing directly head to head with a Hilton, a hotels in that area, and they offer one night stands. You have to be competitive. So it depends. It depends on what your model is and what your market is.
Yeah, that's thank you. I'm trying to figure this. I'm working on figuring this out myself, right? So now you also have another company, right? You don't just do Airbnb. You're not just a super host. You have a company also that invests in short-term rentals, right? So let's switch gears. I'm not a stick shift driver, but let's switch gears, right? And let's talk about you are doing something in New Mexico, right? And what your company is doing right now. What's the name of your company again?
So I have, and thank you for asking, Lawrence, because I am excited about my new company. I have 2 companies. One is called CTG Corporate, and we offer, again, short-term rentals package turnkey as passive investment opportunities. So we acquire those units, we get them set up with a minimum, in seed money from that investor, and then we turn around ROI on that. But then I have another company called Bucket List Stays, which is the face of that. So they're the face of, these are the units that are being stood up across the US and now international. So we're looking at Peru as well, international. And these are what we are offering as far as unique stays. And again, a bucket list of places for people to visit, right? So right now I was recommended by my CPA and also a legal advisor to set those up that way. And a matter of fact, to really set up something called a series LLC, if we wanted to continue to turn these out in different areas as passive investments, that to separate those would be the best way to do it.
Thank you. Well, I need to hear more about that, right? So tell us more about this. Tell us about your New Mexico trip. Tell me about the tiny home that you did.
Yeah, I'm so excited about that tiny home. You know, it's, and you should be, you know, with any project or, you know, any place you're putting your energy towards, it should be your passion, right? It's such a passion. So this new tiny house, which was, again, an investment opportunity by one of our investors that said, okay, this is new, but I'm going to jump right in there because I see the potential. And what they are their unique spaces. So they're not going to be a traditional like condominium or, you know, a home, single family home. They're going to be something like a tiny house, a RV, a tent, things like that. And they are mobile. So the requirement is that they're mobile, whatever this unique space is. So we started with the tiny house, and each one of those unique spaces has a theme and they have a built-in experience. So this one is called the Relentless Raven. And the Relentless Raven came about, and bucket list stays really came about from the post-COVID sentiment of travelers. Travelers were exhausted from all the restrictions, exhausted from, you know, just the COVID fatigue. And
Mhm.
so what we created out of that was more of a rebellious travel model, which meant that we're pulling these unique spaces away from the metro areas and out in these more national park, more off the beaten path. And we're bringing them to you with the built-in experience. So Relentless Raven has a built-in escape room. So it's out in the Rio Grande area. It has a built-in escape room. We just rolled it out like it's only a week old. It's a baby, but it's the first of a line that we're going to continue to go after. And the Relentless Raven actually is a persona of a frustrated post-COVID kick butt female that's kind of moody but intellectual. And so when you walk in there, you'll see some Edgar Allan Poe inspired theme decor. A lot of it is books that you read and things like that, you know, somebody that wants to unplug. So we're excited about that line. And so would the investor. Investor was excited about doing something a little different. Yeah.
So the investor, so tell us a little bit more about this. Tell us a little bit more about how the investor becomes passive in that space that you have there.
Yeah, so the investor is passive because we have them as a member in the LLC because this is the, I feel like I have to make sure I stay out of hot water here.
Okay, well, let's stay
Yeah, stay out of hot water is that these investments are really low cost entry points for a lot of investors who normally invest in like syndicated deals and things like that. These are smaller price points for them. And so for us, we don't do syndication. So the investor comes in as a member of the LLC and they're able to, say, have a little say so and this and that. And so the investor is a member in the LLC and they get to choose certain things, like we let them choose the location and things like that. And so, yeah, they bring in their minimum, payment that we allow, that we ask for, and we contract them and through what we call an operational agreement. And that's done with them actually being a member of the LLC.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a passion project of yours for sure. Because when I said that, when I asked you to talk about it, you almost your smile couldn't over wide enough. So before we finish up, I'd like to find, does anybody have a question? Okay, Samuel, go ahead, Samuel.
Hey, Tamara, this is Sam Stidwell. I didn't quite catch the full name of that company. Where should I look you up at? Was it CTG?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you go to CTG, which will dissolve in a charitable travel group, CTG Corporate.org, you'll see the site that kind of explains the investments and things like that. Like I have one that's coming out tomorrow, and matter of fact, it was supposed to come out today. Because I'm here and the internet is up and down, I have one that's coming available for Houston. So I have, again, the investment opportunities they never stop. They're always there. And so I have a 3-bedroom, 1 bath that's coming up in Houston. And the ROI for that is almost $46,000 a year.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I need to hurry up then since you have something coming out tomorrow.
Thanks for asking, man. Cinto, go ahead, Cinto.
I have a couple of things. I'll let Desmond go ahead before me.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Desmond.
Thank you, Cinto. Thank you, Tamara. Thank you, Lawrence. Is there a special type of insurance? And also, do you prefer a 2-night or 3-night? Do you have a minimum of rental?
So there is, I'll tell you, so to answer your first question, I appreciate your question, Desmond, because it's an important question when it comes to insurance, because one shoe does not fit all when it comes to insurance. So if you're dealing with short-term rental, I will recommend all day long proper insurance. There are other ones out there, but you're talking about someone who splices the coverage the way that you need it, and depending on what your model is and your market is, I would say to look into proper insurance all day long for short-term rental needs. Now, as far as the minimum, we talked about it a little bit. The minimum depends on your market. It depends on your market, and it depends on your unit itself, you know, even the size of your unit and things like that. It's not a, you know, again, a one rule, thumb rule for these particular things, like your minimum stay, because I've seen, and you know, sometimes I do a you know, what do you call that? Consultation. It's been a while. Do consultation, and I saw somebody like leaving a whole lot of money at the table. They were in the Fort Lauderdale area because their minimum was set to, I think it was 3 nights. But the cruise ship industry there is booming. And that's 1-night stays all day long. And so once we lifted that minimum, I mean, the calendar was booked out about 4 months long. So you want to be careful about applying those rules where you haven't done analysis on that.
Was they afraid of the turnaround, the cleaning expense or something like that? Was their reasoning?
That was it. They were telling me, hey, I don't see the reason. You know, we have the cleaners. Why do they have to come out for a 1-night stay? And it's not about that. It's about making, do not leave money at the table. You know, that's what it's about.
Right. Because I've seen hotels now, if you're staying multiple nights, they'll tell you we clean every other day. I was just in Louisiana, so I've seen things change. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Laddie.
Got it, man. Thank you. Ron, go ahead, Ron.
Thank you. Just a quick question, great information. What are your top beach, like 2 top beach and non-beach locations? And also, what's your cancellation policy?
All right, so let's talk about what are my top locations. I don't do lists like that. I do analysis. So you can go to somewhere you never heard about, you know, and it's a beach location. Like I'll tell you right now, a lot of people like the you know, Florida area for beaches and things like that. But honestly, the Gulf area outperforms them when you look at analysis. So again, it all depends on what are the numbers coming back as. And I love your question, because I'll get people that say, well, and I use Disney World, forgive me, people that follow know I use Disney, and I love Disney. I'm actually a Disney professional undercover. I don't say it, but I am. People will tell me, well, I'm going to get me a Disney, you know, a Disney vacation rental. Good luck on that. I mean, good luck on that, because though that market is severely saturated with Mickey vacation rentals, you're going to have some tough time, you know, separating yourself out, you know, from the crowd. And it's not about the theme, it's about this sheer numbers of how many people have rentals in that area. Is it a bad area? No, but can you do way better somewhere else? Yes. You know, so it's all about the, you know, with the tools come back and stay.
Thank you. Go ahead, Cinto.
Hey, thank you again, Tamara. I love what I'm hearing, so much so that I'm actually, I can't believe I'm going to say this publicly. Are you up for partnering?
So the partnerships we do now are simply the ones that I'm talking about. The partnership is that we put together passive investments, and the partnership is that we take on all my company and the team that's in place. We have hosts, we have operators for pricing optimizing and things like that. We take on that part so it's more passive to investor. And the reason why we stick to that is because we want to deliver what we say we're going to deliver. So yes, there's many opportunities I see out there, and I'm like, I would love to partner in that, but we also have to make sure that we are sourced properly, and we are making sure that we're delivering what we say. And once you start moving out of that scope, that becomes shaky. We don't want that to, become shaky. We want to, deliver the best product as always. And I hope that answer your question, so that's the kind of partnering that we do, and we stick with that.
Okay, so if my partnership group puts together a deal, can we go in tandem with your partnership? And if it feels right, if the numbers work out, and if the market's good, you can append that to your company then? Does that work?
Yeah, I'll tell you an example that's kind of like, what I hear you saying, and I don't know, you'll tell me, Cento, is that right now, one of the deals that we're working on here in the Dominican Republic in an area called Wandolio, which is a really nice area and the numbers look good, is we're working on this huge bed and breakfast there. That is going to need partnership. It's something that's, again, a little different. We have to present what the possibility of the portfolio is, and that would require partnership. But what we do for those is we do special briefings that talk about those partnership opportunities, and we don't just push it out as just hey, here's the passive investment opportunity that's already put together, you just sign up. It's more of a development on that partnership. And I know that one will be coming out probably in the next, if I had to put a timeline on, about 30 days. We'll start looking for people that want to partner on that particular opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, the market we're looking at, that's why I'm so serious about this, is Colombia.
Columbia, South Carolina?
No,
Columbia.
country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
and
I'll tell you, and I want to talk to you. Me and you need to talk.
oh, did she freeze up, or is
She
it just
froze up. She froze up. But what you can do,
I wanna
Cento, is
know,
Yeah,
how much you know about that market.
sorry, Tamara,
you froze up.
I missed the last 10 seconds of what you said.
I'm interested. I like the way you think. So we need to talk after this, because with international markets, you don't know what you don't know. And what happens with that is sometimes you don't know what to ask when you're doing your analysis and things like that. So I want to know how well you know that market and what's your interest in growing out in that market. So we need to talk after this.
Yeah, I think we can add a tremendous amount of value. I would love to connect with you offline. I'm very serious about this.
Yeah, thank you.
We have a lot of capital deployed in Q4 this year. So, okay, this is great. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Cento. See that?
No, thank you, Larry. Miss DJ
Gary.
Scorpion.
What's gonna happen is one day I'm gonna have a live spin session right here.
You were about to say disco. Stop it.
Thank you, Cento. Go ahead, Carrie Love.
Hey, great information. A lot of it was a little bit too challenging for me. So I think I have a basic question that is very long, I guess. And so I'll tell you it this way. I want to invest in some kind of vacation rental property, period. I have a couple of partners that we said, yes, let's do it. The problem is where do you start, to get that? And then none of us want to manage it. We don't want to build a business like you're trying to do, and like maybe some of the other. All we want to do is I want to go and buy a property. So the question that always comes up is this: okay, so how do you determine where the best area is to buy something that all of a sudden you're going to get a decent return? You're not going to have to worry about it. And then how do you find the host that can help you get that information?
Oh, I love that question, Carrie, and I'm gonna plug us because that's what we do. Exactly what you're saying. You're looking to buy. And so it wouldn't be a property we're bringing to the table per se, meaning that it's not anything that we've already wrapped up as far as contractually. What we would be doing is finding you the best deal or finding you the best property possible. And so really, what that is analysis. Again, those tools I talked about. You tell me, in general, hey, we want a passive investment. We don't want to spend our life out here, managing it, but we want the returns. That's exactly the business we're in. So we look at it from a analysis perspective. We run the numbers. We run, what is your return going to look like? And is this a good area to get a short-term rental? And then we have the whole thing set up and managed on your behalf. That is what we do on a day in and day out basis.
Okay.
Matter
So,
of fact.
so do I tell you the areas, or you just tell me, hey, currently here are the areas that are turning based upon the amount of investment that we're willing to do?
Because you're buying. So if it were not a purchase that you were making, you really would just look at, like I said, I have one coming up in Houston. I actually have two coming up. I have one coming up in Houston. I have one coming up in Montgomery. That's you taking whatever we've packaged and you just buying into it in a passive way and collecting returns, but you're purchasing. So we're going to ask you, where do you want this at? Because it's a purchase. Now, when you say this is where I want it at, we're running the numbers. Is this a good place to have it at? So we'll ask you 3 or 4 places. Where do you see yourself? Because part of this, and everybody knows it at this point, it's a lifestyle asset. So the majority of people not only get short-term rentals just to get the return. A lot of them use them. I know I do. I'm in I try not to go during Mardi Gras, but I'm in New Orleans quite a bit on a down season. Same thing in Tybee. I'm at the beach in the winter because it's a lifestyle asset as well. So you're kind of telling us where that is. Now, the deal is, I'll tell you right now, Carrie, it isn't the numbers, because short-term rentals, it's hard to get them not to perform. They'll say it's hard to get them not. That's an exception for them not to perform. Where the problem comes is legality. Where can you actually have one and run it legally? That is becoming more and more of a primary question nowadays than whether it's going to perform or not. That's why you see us at Cento too. We're outside. I'm looking outside of the US at this point so that we can continue to scale without the legality and policy issues we're running into.
Or the changes, because even though you buy it today or this year, in 3 years, they can make it illegal for you to do it.
I've seen it. Okay, Carrie, I've seen businesses go out of business because of simple policy changes. And I'll tell you, that goes back to the question of, or the small conversation we had earlier. Why do I tell people not to build out in one place? Because I've seen people's businesses wipe out in one place over one change that happens. So you, just like the stock market, you need to have variety in your portfolio, even from a short-term rental perspective.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, Tamara, I'd like to say thank you for coming on tonight. You have given enough jewels. Hope everybody took some notes. Tamara, please put your name and your number in the chat, your information in the chat for everybody so they get in contact with you. All right. And I want to say I appreciate everybody for coming tonight.
Let's get this picture, laddie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And what happens is, I've been to say this in the beginning, last month was Women's History Month, and this month is Women in Real Estate. As you can see in the back of my backdrop. So this is Women in Real Estate. So next week we have more Women in Real Estate. Next week, I believe, will be the last Tuesday of the month. And we're going to have Renika Lightborn come in from Advanta IRA and talk about how to use your IRA to invest in real estate.